If you go to 24/7 Sports, Chris Hummer put out a really, really good, lengthy feature this week. And it was basically asking the question, it was predicated on the question, how much is a college football player's market value if and when name, image, and likeness legislation changes, which is coming early next year, I think. So it wasn't just Chris Hummer guessing. It was him going to an organization called Open Doors, and it's an athletic kind of marketing platform. They do a lot of research on this. And so basically what Chris Hummer had him do is he had him compile, for his purposes, a list of the top players in America right now and what their earnings potential would be. Okay, so I'm going to get to those numbers in just a second. Some of you may be surprised, some of you may not be surprised. But I want to address a kind of a notion that's been thrown my way and what I used to think, but I don't think anymore. A lot of you, anytime we talk NIL, name, image, likeness, you will resort to suggesting that this is going to ruin college football. It's going to destroy the sport. I don't believe that. I used to believe portions of that. I don't believe that anymore, and I'll tell you exactly why. I had someone the other day on Twitter. I'm not going to belittle your opinion or tell you you're definitively wrong. I'll tell you I disagree with it. And this gentleman said to me, when you start allowing the star players to be paid more than the role type players and the former 3-star left guard, it's going to fracture locker rooms. Now, some of you are already snickering because some of you know that these sorts of things already happen behind the scenes, and locker rooms that have good culture tend to work out fine, and programs whose cultures suck fracture no matter what is happening or not happening. And I think that's probably the case here. If you've got good culture in place, if you've got a solid locker room, you got good leadership, nothing's going to change with NIL. If you have a poor culture and you have a poor element in your locker room, this may very well exacerbate some of the issues. But if the issues aren't already there, I strongly doubt that this is what's going to fracture your locker room. So let me move on. And let me make sure, because this is where my philosophy has changed on this. It is very important, I think, to understand what isn't coming versus what is coming. What isn't coming is a revenue sharing program wherein you're taking the proverbial pie that currently exists, and it's your TV money, and it's your gate revenues, your merchandising sales through licensing, all that stuff that currently constitutes your overall year-to-year revenue summary at a program, and all of a sudden you're paying your players out of that. That is not what name, image, and likeness is about. It is not taking from the existing revenue and paying players. Important distinction here. It is allowing a new revenue stream that you had previously kind of dammed up like a river because you weren't going to allow it. All of a sudden you open up one of those dam coffers, and now you have increased water flow, or in this case, increased revenue from a new source that previously you blocked out. So now, with that understanding, what do we really have? We're allowing a new revenue stream. It's going to be dictated by basic market principles, and it's still going to be grounded in a meritocracy the same way that it would be in a normal market. It's kind of what you have here. Star players are going to make more. The better players are going to go to the bigger programs and probably have more opportunity. But the thing about it is, if you don't deliver, if you sign and you don't deliver, if you sign and you wash out, if you got off the field issues, you're probably not profiting as much as guys who keep their nose clean, keep their head on straight, work their tail off, and they're starting for Southern Cal. They're probably making more. It's still largely merit-based. So a lot of this, once you dive beneath the surface, it's easy to say what's going to ruin the sport. How's it going to ruin the sport? Explain to me how it's going to ruin the sport. So let's dive into this a little bit. So Chris Hummer, again, goes to Open Doors and says, how much would these players be worth this year? Let's just say calendar year. How much would guys like Justin Fields, starting quarterback, Ohio State, be able to earn off of his likeness and image? About $1.34 million. That's what the current starting quarterback at Ohio State would be worth, again, according to Open Doors. Trevor Lawrence, starting quarterback at Clemson, about 1.23. Spencer Rattler has he has not taken meaningful starting snaps as of yet at Oklahoma. He is about an $800,000 earner. Now, I think a lot of these numbers are low, and I'm going to tell you why in just a second. For instance, I'm going down this list. If you think Jamie Newman's not worth $100,000 yet at Georgia, you're crazy. Don't care that he hasn't taken a snap. He is the presumed starting quarterback at the University of Georgia. He's worth more than 88 grand. I'd still take the 88, but I'm just telling you, he's probably worth more than that. So one of the quotes, and you can go read the full piece over on 247sports.com. Blake Lawrence is the CEO of Open Doors. It says his team calculated these numbers by examining what pro athletes with similar social media followings and engagement levels have made in the marketplace. Here's the part I want you to pay close attention to. Open Doors also adjusted its formula based on the number of sponsorship dollars available in college athletics compared to professional sports it examined. This is where the misread is. It's not their fault. They only have the data to go on that currently exists. But I want to stress something to you. This is where the floodgates are going to open here, and this is where it's going to level the playing field a whole lot more than you're afraid it's just going to distance the haves from the have-nots. Sponsorship dollars previously available in college athletics do not equal sponsorship dollars that will be available now that more people are at the table. Here's what I mean by that. If you're watching on YouTube, Colin is showing you all of these stadium shots from SEC games. The SEC has, among other networks, its primary TV deal currently with CBS. And CBS shows the SEC Saturday Game of the Week. And when you watch those games, they frequently go to commercial breaks. That's how you keep the lights on. That's how you pay the bills. And you'll notice all kind of big brands, Dr. Pepper, Aflac, but it's just what I said, really big brands. Because those brands, the marquee, globally recognized brands, those are really the only ones who can afford, in this competitive environment where the ad spots are so limited, you only have so many games, those are really the only brands that can afford to win those bidding wars. So now I want you to imagine that you're a business owner. You're a CEO. It's not Aflac, it's not Dr. Pepper, but let's say you own a supplement company. You do pretty well for yourself. You're not turning billions of dollars a year in profit, but you're doing pretty well for yourself. How would this change your approach? Because you're probably sitting at home on Saturdays and knowing full well your clientele is the 18 to 52-year-old male demographic. Same ones. The Venn diagram would just overlap. Same people who are watching these games. You think that me, the CEO and the owner of a mid-level supplement company, wouldn't love to advertise on the CBS Saturday afternoon game of the week? Of course I would. I just can't afford the ad spot. Dr. Pepper's, they can write their checks. They can print their money. I don't have that capability. Doesn't mean I wouldn't love to be part of that market share. And so now new opportunities present themselves. So now let's continue. There's a misconception, I think, and I've spoken about this before. I think the big misconception is that this whole deal, when players can benefit off their name, image, and likeness, and it becomes part of the recruiting strategy for major programs, the worry is that Ohio State's parked there in Columbus, Ohio. They have unlimited resources. Alabama has unlimited resources. Southern Cal's in obviously Southern California. They have unlimited resources. They're in these, in some cases, these huge cities, major media markets. They have unlimited potential, and all these things are true. But what you're scared of is that it's just going to put these few programs on this rocket ship, and they're going to go into a different stratosphere, and no one else other than those few are going to be able to compete. I think it's false, but let me ask you this. How does the sport look right now? How many programs are competing right now? How many of them, as we enter the season, would you be willing to call a legitimate national championship contender? Not playoff, not conference, championship contender. Because once you get past the programs, maybe outside of Southern Cal, once you get past the usual suspects, the Alabamas, the Ohio States, the Clemsons, the Oklahomas, Georgia, LSU, once we get past about half a dozen of them, you don't need much more breath to finish the list. I'll just put it like that. So everyone claiming it's going to do that to the sport, I would tell you, no. That's the current state of affairs. I'm not sure if you think that's bad for the sport. I'm not sure it can get any worse. So I think the default setting here is to realize the sport's already insanely top-heavy. So now, let me explain to you where the beauty of conference television deals change this whole landscape. Think about what we've talked about. I know this is a lot. Well, maybe for you it's not. For me it is. So let's follow along closely, because let me tell you what my strategy would be, and let me tell you why my strategy, I think, is going to be the strategy of a lot of mid-level corporations, mid-level companies out there that see this as the window to get their product finally visible in the world of college athletics, whereas they never could before because they were boxed out from being able to purchase what you would call classical advertising. And the players were off limits because the NCAA forbade them capitalizing on their name, image, and likeness. So you couldn't have any side endorsement deals. Now you can. Here's what my strategy would be. If I were, let's say I go back to my hypothetical role as the CEO of a mid-level, kind of recognizable supplement brand and health brand, what I would do is I would look at Alabama and I'd say, they're going to have no problem here. Ohio State's going to have no problem. But you know what? Alabama doesn't have a TV deal. The SEC does. And that means that Alabama's on national TV 12 games a year, but so is Arkansas, so is Kentucky, so is Missouri. And you know what? A lot of people watch those games too. And you know what else? Arkansas plays a lot of the biggest programs in America, so by default, a lot of eyeballs are on those games. You could say the exact same thing about Michigan State. You could say the same thing about Maryland. All of these network TV deals now come into play to where you're guaranteed, if you're playing on those teams, you're on national TV 10, 11, or 12 weeks out of the year. I'm looking to get my brand visible. So I'm not going to Alabama. I'm not going to Ohio State. They don't need my money. But if I've got all of a sudden on the side a $400,000 a year, let's call it an endorsement budget, I'm going to the University of South Carolina or Arizona State or Kentucky, and I'm putting portions of that money, I'm kind of a lobbyist at this point, I'm putting portions of that money into their recruiting fund. Call it whatever I need to skirt the rules, but I'm telling you, this is the money I'm giving you to take on the recruiting trail. You don't put it in the kid's pocket. It's not like dropping a sack of cash like the old days. What you're telling kids that you recruit is, you, upon signing a letter of intent with us, automatically qualify for a downside guarantee $15,000 per year endorsement deal with JP Supplement Company. You tell all your 4-star kids that. You tell all your 5-star kids that. And so now all of a sudden, a new strategy emerges where South Carolina just partnered with JP Supplement Company. What if they have 10 more deals like that? Do you see all of a sudden how the coffer that you have to work from is starting to fill up and it's starting to get really competitive by default of you being able to play all your games on national TV, and you're still a pretty big deal. You may not be Alabama, but you're still South Carolina, so you got some tradition to sell. You got some history to sell. You got some inventory to sell. That's how that's going to work. And I'm telling you, whereas right now, a lot of folks are worried that this is just going to benefit the very few at the expense of the many, I don't think that's how it's going to work. I wanted to read one more little excerpt from here before we move on. I want you to listen to this, and then I want you to tell me, who does this sound like? This is the, I want to make sure I get the name right, the organization that Chris Hummer interviewed. This is them talking again. The size of a program's social media following has a huge impact on a player's earnings potential. How big your footprint is digitally on the social channels really has a lot to do with how much earnings potential your players are going to have. Fields and Lawrence, for example, are national names, but their value is boosted by Ohio State and Clemson's digital footprint that will help them grow their brand with targeted videos and posts across social media platforms with millions of followers. Now we circle back to a question we had a couple of weeks ago about LSU's graphics department last year. Do you remember how big a leap digitally LSU took last year? Some of you don't care about this, but those of you who are active on Twitter, Instagram, you saw LSU was putting out these amazing videos, and you saw LSU was lapping the field in the graphics department. They were next level. There was a move that was made in the offseason. It didn't make front page headlines, but some of us in this industry took notice. The University of Southern California came after LSU's digital video guys, came after some of them, and signed them. Now that sounds like it's not a big deal. It's a huge deal because of what I just read to you. Your ability to separate on the social platforms is directly connected to your ability to give maximum earnings potential to the players that you sign, which goes right into your recruiting portfolio when you go into their living room. This is certainly not the last time we're going to talk about this, but this is the way that the industry is changing. And let me lastly put it to you like this. Everyone loves to swear that recruiting has been such a dirty, filthy industry forever. We're going to talk about it in a second, actually. And everyone swears that every time they miss out on a recruit, it's because fill in the blank university dropped 80 grand into their dad's church the night before signing day. And it happens. So I'm not telling you it doesn't. However, I want you to consider, if that's one of the big problems you have with college athletics, the kind of seedy underbelly of illegal benefits on the recruiting trail, you need to consider how this may recalibrate the system. When we can do a lot of that stuff legally now, what kind of advantage do those programs who only benefited by skirting the rule book, how do they survive now? Maybe it weeds out a lot of those dirty players that you love to frown on so much. Just something to think about.